Hello and welcome to Chinalog. I'm David Moser. A little change of pace today. We're going to have a musical show. A lot of American and foreign bands and musicians are coming to China to perform here, interact with Chinese musicians, and sort of make China their second home. So we have two people in the studio today who are evidence of that. One is a mainly performer and one is a sort of a promoter, but also a musician, John Campbell and Abigail Washburn. And I can call you Abby, right?
You can.
We're on good terms. Okay,
Sure,
great.
yeah, we're pulling you up.
All right, so a lot of stuff to talk about, and Abby, I want to get into your whole life story and everything, but let's start with how you two met, because you brought her here, Abigail?
I first met Abby after Abby had already been in China for a while. I moved here in 2000, and Abby had been here for a couple years by then, possibly working. And we met through a couple of different mutual friends, a couple of different ways, and then Abby moved away, and I stayed here, and she had always talked about her intention to come back and study law.
Oh.
So when she told me she was coming back and was looking for gigs, I was kind of thrown for a loop. And
I actually think it was your idea. Because I was coming back to visit after I realized I wasn't going to come back and study law. I'd sort of taken a surprise track into music, kind of a miraculous moment in my life where everything changed and I became a musician. And I was coming back just to visit my Beijing friends because it had been a year and a half since I said I was going to move back and go to get a master's in law.
Okay.
And so I was like, John, I'm coming back. And you were like, well, you might as well bring your banjo and play some shows. I think it was your idea.
it sounds like a thing that I would.
So at that time, were you promoting bands and stuff?
At that time, I had just really started, I think. I worked at an English language monthly magazine that used to be called That's Beijing. And
yes, That's Beijing, right.
The Beijinger, it's called now. And I was responsible for a monthly show that we had done from 2002 until 2003 when I left the magazine. I worked on that monthly show, so that's kind of where I started my own sort of putting on gigs. But I had also played around with my own bands and stuff, and so knew a lot of, and between working at the magazine as a bars and clubs editor, knowing all the people who had venues.
So around that time, you begin to get a lot of foreign bands here. I mean, through the 90s especially, but especially the 2000s it started. So tell us your organization and what you do.
Yeah, what I do is under the banner of YG2.
YG2, which stands for?
YGTWO, which stands for the pinyin version, the Chinese transliteration version of a phrase in Chinese that I really like called Yanggui Yaoguan, which means foreign devil rock and roll.
Okay.
I just like the sound of the YGs.
And you're a foreign devil and you do rock and roll.
I'm a foreign devil and I do rock and roll. And yeah, so yeah, you're right. I think especially in the early 2000s is when at the small sort of club level it really started to take off with visiting musicians because initially it was a lot of large scale. I mean, a lot being relative.
So a lot of bands of all types. You mainly deal with sort of alternative pop, rock,
all kinds really,
including jazz,
rock, folk, jazz. Yeah.
Mention a few names. Some people might know the one that I think probably most people know is Bella Fleck.
Sure.
Flecktones. And just briefly say what's their their relationship to China. Why does he come here a lot?
Well, Bella's relationship to China is sitting right next to me right here, in the form of his lovely bride, Abigail Washburn.
Right.
So Bella's been here twice, in the company of Miss Abby, doing a group that they put together called the Sparrow Quartet, which is a version of groups that Abby's come with.
Right.